Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon. I'm super excited to lead this conversation today. I had some issues with the sound, but already resolved, and you can hear me well. So first, from the introductions, Apoorv, you will start. Can you please introduce yourself and also mention what is your when it comes to insights?
Okay, thanks, Lugo. Your voice is still breaking, but I could figure out that you're asking us to introduce ourselves. So I'll go first. Hi, guys, everyone on the panel and everyone who's listening to us. I'm Apoorv. I'm General Manager Marketing in the Domino's India marketing team, and I'm heading the consumer insight vertical for the brand. I've been with Domino's for the last 8 9 months, and before Domino's, I had set up and led the consumer insight function for Blinkit, which is a quick commerce e-grocery startup in India. I spent almost 3.5 years there, and building the brand from scratch to becoming a unicorn in India. And prior to that, I've had 8 9 years stint with the market research companies, Ipsos, Kantar, and others. Yeah, that's about me, and I'm looking forward to interacting with you all.
Fantastic.
Uh,
So who is going to be next?
I can jump in next. Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Srinath Ramachandra. I I currently work for LinkedIn, and my role is as a manager for customer insights for Singapore and Australia for the LinkedIn marketing solutions business, which I think hopefully you're familiar with LinkedIn ads as a product. Generally, LinkedIn is known for recruitment and the talent side, but we do have a pretty large scale, digital ads and marketing solutions business, and so yeah, I drive insights for some of our high value clients who spend their marketing dollars with us. So really, it's a pleasure to join you all, and looking forward to the conversation for the next 40 minutes or so.
Okay, I think the last one is me, so I'm just gonna go ahead. Hi all, I'm Indah. I'm a research and insights VP in Gojek, and I hope all of you have heard of Gojek. We're basically, I don't want to call it a super app anymore, but we're doing ride hailing, food delivery, logistics services in all over Southeast Asia. And I've been in Gojek for the past 6 years, working in the research and insights team. And what's really exciting is that we have been working with not only product team, which we initially work really closely with the product and design. We're also working with marketing and strategy and planning. So yeah, it's really exciting evolution for research in our company, and I hope I can contribute to the topic today. Thank you.
Super exciting. So today we're going to talk about the situation we're living after all the external factors that have happened during the last 2 years. And I would like a little bit more about your industries and how your companies are going through this time. So maybe you tell us more about how the market changed, how consumers changed, and how the business environment changed. And in that, maybe we start.
All right, let's start with me first. All right, so I think for the past 2 years, we've noticed, obviously there are multiple things that have really, really changed. 2021, 2020 to 2022 is basically, it's almost like a dream for for many of us. First thing that we've noticed is technological adoption has really accelerated. I'm sure that Srinath and Apoorv see the same thing that happened, and especially in our sector of ride hailing, food delivery, and e-commerce, we see that there are more, older people that are adopting technology. There are families that are relying more on these services for their daily life and coordinating different needs within their family. So, COVID in a way, it has really changed that aspect of technological adoption. And in another aspect, obviously, it has really changed the way that people are consuming everything. Basically, that's what I see. Obviously, ride hailing was hit really hard with COVID. It really changed the way that people define mobility for themselves. With a lot of people are working from home, or they choose to work in places that are in closer proximity to themselves. And even with consuming food, it has also really changed. And with price inflating and a lot of people also losing their jobs, it has really changed people consumer behavior pattern and what they're able to spend. Usually they have a certain category, and now it has completely changed. So I think that's the big thing that I've noticed since COVID or the past 3 years.
So we want to continue sharing what's going on with how people are eating pizza. The challenge come.
Yeah. So I think what Enda just touched upon in terms of technology adoption, we can see that real change in the way our business operates. So if I talk about Domino's or pizza business in India, I mean, for us, the channel mix has changed completely. So prior to COVID, our contribution from the offline channels, from the dine-in and the takeaway, was quite significant. Now, what we have seen that it has quite reversed after the last 2 years. So, and just to put some numbers, more than 60% of our business has shifted to online ordering, which is huge in a country like India, which is a dine-in heavy kind of a market. We are delivering more than 60% order, which are coming through online. So that's a big change which has happened in terms of the channel preference of consumers. Another big change which I've seen in the India market is that there's a lot of shift happening from the unorganized food sector to the organized. Now, we could say that maybe the hygiene and safety concern, which got aggravated during the COVID, has kind of accentuated this behavior. Because when the people think of the outside food, they want reliable options, they want reliable brands. So they are no longer okay to eat street food or outside food, which is they are not very confident of. So in a way, it has further fueled the growth of QSR players because these are known brands, and which we can see that shift is happening from our unorganized to organized. I think these are the two major consumer trends which we are seeing in our business.
That's super exciting. And Serena, how is that going in LinkedIn and in the context of business to business?
Absolutely. Totally, like, I think whatever Inda and Apu touched upon, I'll talk a little bit about how the pandemic has accelerated behavior change, and that has an implication in terms of what we're seeing on LinkedIn. I think the first thing is a lot of the conversations which was offline has gone online. So we used to have, I think, even this sort of conference, which was probably more of an in-person conference that used to happen maybe 3 years ago, is now all moved online and virtual. So as a result, a lot of the brands are now driving conversation with their employees, with their prospective employees, with their consumers, and most of the conversation has moved online. And so they're doing events online, they're generating leads online, in fact, salespeople are reaching out to contacts to generate leads online. And so the entire sort of journey, consumer journey, has really shifted dramatically from what was a combination of offline and online channels to almost fully online to a very large extent. So specifically during the pandemic, I think there's a lot of budgets from marketing companies who are focused on outdoor advertising and event advertising, and they sort of reallocated that to online and digital channels. So we saw that massive wave of growth that's moving. The second thing I think that happened, and so that obviously means a lot more brands really being connected to their consumers through the digital channel. The second one was mainly in terms of talent. I think what really happened is there's a whole sort of a cultural revolution, if I could call that, in terms of what folks felt because of the pandemic. Like they started earlier, I think a lot of people, the accepted norm was they would plan their life around work and make sure that life fits around work. But then they started realizing that work should fit around life, and a lot of people started questioning that age old wisdom of work is the most important thing, right? And so a lot of folks opted to work offline, opted to work out of offices, and they knew that it was possible. So they started demanding that as a more of a hygiene, and they're continuing to do so. So there's a whole sort of wave of changes in terms of how employees saw businesses and employers, and so that we sort of internally within LinkedIn, but also it's something that we've shared, is called it the great reshuffle, where people are really sort of questioning what they want to do with their life from their work life and really focusing on things that matter. And they saw an opportunity to test this out, and so that was the second big sort of a cultural change in terms of how we look at work and how we make it fit with our day to day. And so that was the second thing. And I think the third thing is mainly because of the digital shift, we saw a massive boom in some sectors. I can talk about two specific sectors. One is the edutech sector, which is basically education moved online, right? So you had I think we can take example of India, but we saw that across other markets as well, that a lot of degree programs and online programs went online. So no longer the differentiation between, say, a top grade MBA versus a program, people started to feel like there's no difference because all of them moved online, and so they felt, okay, I might as well not invest as much, $200,000 in a full-time program, but I can do this through a focused short-term program. So edutech saw a massive boom, and you saw a lot of boom in the SaaS industry, right? Which is basically built upon online subscriptions and long-term customer lifetime value. So we saw a lot of VC money flooding in to mainly SaaS companies. So these were the three sort of major shifts that we saw being accelerated. And again, while I largely speak for B2B, this is also applicable in the B2C context, like what Inda was mentioning for ride hailing, and Pur was mentioning from a food industry. But also you could see that a lot of the B2C, like insurance, went digital, right? Direct to consumer, right? They've moved from physical agents to everything being virtual and onboarded. So a lot of those shifts happened very quickly over the last couple of years, and we are seeing some interesting, I wouldn't say repercussions, but implications as an account of that.
Yeah, that's super exciting. People prefer to stay at home a little bit longer, and they appreciate the work-life balance, and they're taking care about their health more proactively. So many things are happening. The technology steps into the place, and many companies are working hard to bring new novelties, no matter which market they are operating, that also steps into the technology and digital capabilities. When it comes to the research and insights work, how it's changed, and mainly, what do you think will change in the next?
We lost a little bit of your speech there, but was that a question for me in terms of what has changed for research and insights, if I understood correctly?
So what changed when it comes to how you do insights work, and what do you expect would be the big focus in the insights industry for the future?
So I'll take that one, Libov. See, what we are seeing is that, of course, we already talked about the inflationary pressures on the consumer. Now that pressure is on the companies as well. Okay, so the cost of raw materials have gone up. There are interdependencies on other countries with a war ongoing situation. It has impacted business. Now in this scenario, of course, budgets are getting cut, marketing budgets are getting cut. But let me tell you one thing. I mean, in terms of research and insight, I think we are doing more work than what we used to do earlier. Because given the scenario, there is more need of understanding the consumer, that too in real time, because the world has become very dynamic. Now, like I was mentioning you about the channel interplay, if there are multiple channels through which you need to reach out to the consumer, you have to have insight and research done for every vertical. Okay. Now, and that is where the number of researches which we used to do has gone up. So in fact, maybe the budgets have remained the same, but the amount of work which is required from the same budget, from the same spends, that demand has gone up. Okay. So we are pressed for looking for alternative ways of doing research. I mean, moving things online, uh, less dependence on external research agencies where you have to spend money. So we are in a transition phase, and what does this mean for the research industry? I'll say that probably agility has become much more important right now, agility as well as cost effectiveness. So the traditional ways of doing researches do not work for us. Okay. So we have to find, and like Inda was mentioning, that the technology adoption has happened so quickly, so the consumers have moved online. So the researchers, the insight work also has to be done online. So we are seeing a shift in terms of deploying more and more tech-based research solutions, trying to catch consumers in the moment, trying to reduce the turnaround time of traditional researchers, and that is where the role of technology is coming in. Now, the way I see the research industry, that there are two spectrums, two end of the spectrum. There are traditional research agencies which take that much of time to deliver a research. Then on the other end, there are tech-based companies which are delivering data in very quick time. Okay. The need of the R is, I think, somewhere in the middle. You need agility, but at the same time, you also need a storytelling. Okay. Or what you make sense out of the data. So what I feel is that probably we need to find a solution in between, where, of course, we are more agile in terms of collecting the data, but not spending too much of data, too much of time in terms of churning out the report. So even if the report is, say, 70-80% accurate, but it gives us a clear direction of what to do next week, I think that is what we are looking at in terms of the future of research. And I think Inda can touch more upon that because she also is developing those solutions.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more with Apur. If anything, we're getting more work. And to add on what Apur said, I think two things that I notice is that it's getting more and more important for us to apply our work beyond just one area within the company. Like we need to make it super worth it, right? We're getting budget cuts, so we need to make sure that one project is going to be able to affect as many components of the company as possible. So that's one thing that I noticed. And the second thing that I see has really accelerated since COVID is the research and insights team ability to actually predict what kind of issues we need to tackle next. Because the company usually, it's kind of like, at least for Gojek, I feel like a lot of people are really focused on the execution stage, right? They're dealing with today's problem or like this week's problem, and they don't really have the luxury of looking beyond that lens of what's immediate. So I think it becomes our job. You were expected to we have the time, the luxury to actually look beyond that time frame, and we have to be able to, do the research before we're being asked to do the research, so that we're not becoming a bottleneck to the processes, to the decision-making processes. So I think those are the two things that I notice a lot, and I think it's a huge challenge, to be honest. It's not easy to be able to see, okay, what are they going to need next, and it's a trial and error process. But yeah, I think it's been truly exciting, and I think COVID has really accelerated that.
Yeah, I totally.
Just one thing I would, just one thing I would want to add on before Srinath, you comment, is that businesses have moved online. Now, what does that mean? It means that maybe the external touch point of a brick and mortar store, which has now converted in a storefront, in an app. So in a way, the dependency on external research has reduced because you can do a lot of A/B testing on the app itself. Okay, so a lot of A/B testing experiments we run on the app, and we get quick data, and we take calls, and we move ahead. So in a way, that part of the research inside, I think the dependency is reducing on the external agencies.
Yeah.
But at the same time, see, the A/B test will not be able to predict future, what Inda was talking about.
Exactly.
Analyze the behavior and understand the market scenarios. So I think there is a lot of scope of research to be able to predict what is going to happen.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
completely aligned with what
I
you
think
folks were sharing earlier. Sorry, Lubo.
yeah.
Sure. Okay. I think let me share a couple of thoughts, like from my perspective in terms of what's changed. I think as Apur mentioned, post the pandemic, again we are heading into a little bit of, to put it mildly, economic uncertainty, mainly because of the Fed rates being amped up, which has so much implications in terms of capital flows and potential sort of retractions in terms of how companies are allocating funds and thinking about the next 2 to 3 years. And most of it is very much sort of it looks like to be a period of contraction and inflation, and so they're very conservative in terms of hiring. Most companies have frozen hiring and things like that, which I'm sure all of you have read about. So what does it mean from a research perspective is actually in such a very interesting time, which is a combination of so many different changes, including the war and including the economic uncertainty and just coming out of the pandemic. What that means is research about audiences and insights into mindsets, consumer mindset, which is changing so rapidly, is even more important and is now a C-suite conversation. Earlier, what was more of an operational tactical conversation is now a C-suite conversation. So everybody wants to be ahead of the curve, sort of figure out where the consumers are moving, what's their attitudes, mindsets, what's the shift, so that the companies can think ahead and be ahead of that shift. So which means that now there's a lot more pressure on market research, both third party and first party, to deliver those viewpoints and tell a story, right? As Apur was mentioning and as Inda was referring to. So again, it's moving the conversation from market research insights, moving from a very tactical level to more of a strategic C-suite level, which is great. But as we say, we are not hiring, so which means that we are now stretched to sort of be creative in terms of how we drive that. The second change, I think, probably a little more relevant to the marketing industry, is that a lot of the privacy changes that have come through. Again, it's not related to the pandemic, but that's also one of the forces for us, has really sort of hampered third-party data tracking and ability to understand complete consumer journeys. And so, as a result, it's put the impetus more on first-party platforms to drive thought leadership, and we are seeing that a lot in LinkedIn, but I'm sure other platforms as well are who own first-party data are in a better place to sort of talk about consumer needs than ever before. And so we are seeing some of those shifts as well in terms of the internal insights and research teams being held to drive more thought leadership and more business level thinking.
So maybe going a little bit deeper when it comes to the specific methodologies, because many companies on the agency side are listening to our conversation today. Maybe you want to share some specific methods or specific problems that are not addressed today by none of the companies you are working on, like to share the brief that might help agencies to pitch you after, or maybe to share the example or the best practices of the recent project that you have recently done that actually addresses the current difficult conditions we are living at and the constant changing of the business environment.
So I'll tell you what we are trying to do, at least in Domino's. So I think two big things which we have done is that, one, we've tried to set up an in-house CATI calling team, consumer interviews, which conducts consumer interviews on phone. See, it allows us to get very, very quick answers and hypotheses created in real time. So that is one thing. Second thing, what we have tried to do is that we have access to our own consumers. Okay. So for researchers, where we can get quick answers from our own consumers, we try to do a lot of surveys or researches directly through the app notifications or through SMS or email based surveys. I think that these are the two things which we are trying to do in house. I think from an external point of view, I think see, for an FMCG or an FNB kind of a company, there is one major component of market research is the innovation pipeline testing, which is the product test and the concept test part of it. That is where I think we still have not been able to figure out the agile way of doing it, where we have to make the consumers consume a product, test something, look at a packaging, and then evaluate. I think that is one area where probably I would be very keen in looking at some solutions which can directly help us on that front.
I can jump in here and share a little bit. I think one of the things, I think a big challenge that companies go through from a marketing perspective is really around the decision to invest in marketing. And as Apoorv mentioned, I think, and in the alluded to, they cut budgets, obviously, and one of the first budgets to go is marketing budgets because it's more discretionary for a company. But what we found out is a lot of research does point that brands that actually reach out to consumers and build connections during a recession or during a downtime actually last longer. So there are some iconic brands who've done this, like Kellogg's in the 1920s, great economic crisis that the US went through. Then we had a few examples of other brands that have really done well, and I can try and dig out a couple of examples there. But what we found is brands that remain on and actually drive a lot more connection. And over a longer period of time, they drive disproportionate value because advertising is cheaper. Not a lot of brands are sort of venturing out and talking or connecting to consumers, so you get a lot more free space and white space to reach out to them. And so we've sort of actually proven that with data with some of our clients in terms of how sort of leveraging brand at this point of time actually makes it cheaper and more efficient, not just for your longer term, like 3 or 5 year point of view, but really in terms of driving better performance for your lead generation as well. So through testing and things like that, we found out that branding actually drives more effective lead generation. So that's one of the examples. The other big examples are really about attracting talent, right? And that's a key thing for a lot of a big challenge. Very interesting phenomenon is there are obviously, while hiring is low, there is a lot of churn because of the great reshuffle. And so it's more about getting the right talent and the top talent, which becomes critical, because you cannot now spray and pray and hope that you hire 5 people and hope that 3 of them are good, because now you can only say hire 2 people and you got to hire 2 good people, right? So then you have to be more precise in terms of how you do hiring. And so some of the work we've done with some of my colleagues on the talent solution business actually help in identifying what are the most challenging talent pools to hire for, and how do you reach out to that pool? What is it that matters? And what's quite interesting is brands that actually have values and are tied to certain things, like maybe sustainability, or maybe being ethical, or maybe being very socially conscious, are doing exceptionally well in terms of attracting talent. And so that becomes a very critical factor, and those are some of the use cases that we are seeing in terms of effectiveness from both the talent and the marketing side of things.
Yeah, I think from my side, to answer your question on a specific part on what can agencies do to kind of elevate the proposition that they can give to companies that might need insight services, is I think what we really recognize as kind of a mistake or something that we could have done better throughout because of COVID is that we kind of wish that we had looked at the macro factors earlier, even before COVID happened, because we then realized that all these things can actually affect each other. And instead of looking at things tactically, it would be really good if we had been tracking what consumer behaviors are like, and how does that actually relate to the macroeconomic factors that we didn't really think of before would affect the way that we're operating, the way that the world is going to be for us, and the way that we work. So I think it would be really good if agencies can start looking into these factors a lot more closely, tracking it a lot more closely, and kind of give that as a value proposition that would add up, kind of like add into even an ad hoc kind of research, like a one snapshot kind of research. You kind of add that factors into consideration when making the report or when synthesizing the insights, because I think we're still kind of training ourselves to kind of look a bit bigger than the problems at hand. And I think that, like agencies could play a lot of role in doing that for companies.
Super exciting to hear all of that. So my next question would be about the recommendations or advices you can give to insights professional today. Insights on the side of the agencies and insights on the side of the clients. So what type of advices you will give?
From my side, I think some of the best agencies that I've worked with really take their relationship seriously, meaning that they really commit to having very few people to actually get deep to really understand how the companies that they're servicing is actually working and how that company evolves. So they actually spend the time to get in touch to see how the company have evolved, how things like COVID have changed, or like, for example, investment in tech industry now is not so great. How has that changed us? And also, I think seizing upon opportunities and working with tech companies is to not, what Apoorv said before, a lot of people have digitized their processes, is to not hesitate to suggest an idea to triangulate the findings from primary research with whatever your clients have at hand in terms of data, because that would make it a lot more powerful. It enrich the knowledge of the inside professionals, and like your report will just be that much stronger. And I think lately I've had experiences where I think agencies are quite hesitant to make a very strong and recommendation that are very sharp, because maybe they feel like they're not part of that company. But I think that's why you need to invest in the relationship with your client, so that you can make those recommendations and not come off as being too generic. So those would be my my advice, because being generic right now is just not good. We need to make sure our money is worth it.
Yeah, so I think my recommendations, at least to the agencies, would be that don't try to sell your product. Just try to solve the client's problem or solve the business questions. Okay. What we've been seeing a lot lately is that there are templatized products which the agencies are trying to sell. Now, I think the future lies in a hybrid approach. I think where what Inder also touched upon, that if the client already has a lot of data information about a business problem, try to understand that and try to build upon that through a primary research rather than just pushing a research. So I mean, like for example, in our case, we have access to our consumers. We are not dependent on agencies to give access to consumers. Okay, we can reach out to our consumers. So understand the problem, understand the consumer in-house data first, and then try to form your primary questions. It's not necessary to sell your online panel to the client when they already have access. Okay, so what you can probably pitch is a very agile way of building a survey, a quick way of scripting the survey, and a quick data analysis rather than just trying to sell your online panel. So somewhere in middle, try to find a hybrid approach of working with the clients. I think to the insights professional, I think what I'll recommend is that never shy away from saying the truth internally. A lot of times, what we feel internally is that that this data point is a bit uncomfortable to be shared in a board meeting, or maybe it will raise further questions. See, the job of an insight professional is to simply put is to critique the communications which we are making, is to critique the products which we are making. See, you are the only voice of the consumer inside the company. You're not there to sugarcoat things. Okay, in that process, of course, you will probably make some enemies also in the company, because a lot of people do not want to hear the bad story about a product or a communication or any marketing strategy. But yes, I mean, always speak the truth. I mean, then you will get more value internally. Your opinion will be more valued. And of course, the third thing is that be much closer to the business. Try to understand the business metrics more. A lot of times we get so preoccupied with the research part, the operations or the technicalities of the research, that we lose sight of the business problem. So if we are well versed with the business numbers, we know in which direction the business is heading, where are we weak, where are we kind of seeing leakages happening, I think we'll be able to add much more value internally.
Srina?
I think Inda and Apur have really sort of summarized it well. The only thing I might add is I think it's about changing the way we approach and don't like question your hypothesis and drive a hypothesis driven up. Like whenever you think about any insights or research, like don't get into set patterns that have been working for the last few years, because it's a very different time. Consumers are different, the challenges are different. So start with the consultant approach, where you think of the business first, right? And drive that relationship with the business. This is a great time to be in research and insights, because you can be a business partner to your C-suite, to the top management, because they're also struggling to make decisions. So that also means you need to change and challenge yourself and develop like a hypothesis based approach to research. Again, it might mean that you might not have enough sample sizes. It might, but still I think it's important for us to really look ahead and spot early patterns and surface it with obviously the required caveat, and think how can we be nimble and sort of figure out alternative ways to answer questions that are quite important for our business stakeholders. So yeah, it's quite an exciting time to be here and drive that conversation in the larger company, and have your voice heard.
That's super exciting. Very good analysis. Anyone in the room who is watching us, I see many participants, maybe you can ask questions live. Okay.
Yeah, if anyone has questions for the panelists, please do use the raise hand button on the top right corner. I'll put you on live and you can ask the questions directly to the panelists. Come on, this is a fantastic topic and really relevant and current. So if you have any questions at all, please do. And if you're shy, you can ask them on the room chat, type them in, and then the panelists can answer them for you. Now, if I may, ask a question. Now we have the next session on foresights. Now, a lot of companies are setting up their foresights function as a discipline. How much of a role do you think this is playing across verticals? And what do you think about foresights as a discipline going ahead? It's becoming more and more important. So it would be great to have your thoughts.
Maybe I'll start first, Amrit, because we've discussed about this before.
Yes.
We recently just kicked off our foresight processes in research. Basically, it's quite exciting because the way that I see it, it really forced people to think about an alternate scenarios that doesn't seem like it's anywhere close to what the reality is today. But and people are, and again, this is kind of thanks to COVID, but before maybe it's really hard for people to buy into it because it seems like, there's no way that this could possibly happen. But COVID has really changed our, what is possible as a reality for us. And that has really opened up people's acceptance in actually exploring what scenarios could happen in the future. what are some of the things that we really need to pay attention to, and building tools to actually measure what are the probabilities of us going to one scenario versus the others, and kind of preparing for those and making sure that our strategy is built for different kind of scenarios, or at least we're focusing our efforts on initiatives or like key initiative that could actually cover different kind of scenarios. So yeah, I think it's really exciting. I feel like this is the new thing that research and insights need to get into, because as Srinath is saying, we are now at the level where we're no longer looking at tactical, we're on the C-suite, they're interested in insights. So foresight has will be an elevation to what research and insights is going to be able to provide to our companies. I feel like yeah, it's a very exciting room to explore.
Great, fantastic. Thanks for that, Inda. Yeah, if we don't have any more questions, I think we can end the session. That's all the time that we have. Thank you so much, Lyubov, for moderating this and for the great questions. And a big thank you to all the panelists, Srinath, Inda, and Apoorv, for joining us and for the great insights. It's a fantastic topic, and great to have your your thoughts on that and your valuable insights. We have the final session just about to start. It's by Joanna Lepore from Mars. It's again a topic that we've been talking about now. It's on foresights. So please make sure to head there and enjoy the session. And a big thank you to the panelists and the moderator again for joining us here.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Thank you
Amrit.
so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Lyubov. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Lyubov.